Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for being here. My name is Marcella, and we have Representative Herndon, we have Representative Hockman Vigil, we have Representative Dixon, we have Senator Harold Pope, and we have, who am I missing? Am I missing anybody? I'm looking at my screen. So thank you all for being here. And why don't we go ahead and start with, I'm going to go across my screen.
Oops, you muted yourself, Marcella.
Thank you.
I think I read your lips. Yeah.
Did you? Good.
Hi, Marcella.
And then,
hi, everybody.
Hi. And your legislative priorities.
Sure. So I'm Representative Day Hockman V. Hill. I represent District 15, which currently is the Northeast Heights, North Valley, and one precinct on the west side of Albuquerque. That will be changing very soon. So this year is kind of a different year, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard that we're not going to be considering as many policy priorities as we normally do. The items on the governor's agenda seem to be quite limited. So I am focusing mainly on budgetary issues. I'm a member of the House Appropriations and Finance Committee, and through that mechanism, Representative Bankua and I have been working on creating the Office of Gun Violence Prevention in the Department of Health. And I'm going to be working on a couple other issues, retirement for court judges, but mostly I'm just going to be working on putting a good budget together with all the federal funds that are available.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Let's go to who's next on my screen. Representative Herndon.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's absolutely a pleasure to be here with you and to see you all. I represent House District 28 in the Northeast Heights. It has been reconfigured somewhat to include 928 more people. So I'm really excited about meeting those new individuals who are coming into my district. In terms of my legislative priorities, let me tell you about my first one and the one that I am passionately pursuing. And that's called the Benny Hartgrove Gun Safe Act Bill. And so what we're looking at is the fact that there have been 11 shootings in public schools in the state of New Mexico. And recently there have been 3 more added, so to make that a total of 14. So with respect to that, we want to make sure that our students, when they go to school, that they feel comfortable that they're going to be able to come home that very next same day. And so that when they go to school, that they're concerned and consumed with learning and not with whether or not they're going to be shot. And so what we're doing is we created this Benny Hartgrove Gun Safe Act legislation, which tells parents, if you are purchasing a weapon or a gun, you are responsible for it. Your gun, your responsibility. And your responsibility is to keep it safe where individuals who are minors cannot access it. And what does safe mean? Well, we have that as a broad definition because we know that what safe may mean in a neighborhood that's low income may be very different from a neighborhood that is high income in terms of those who might spend $500 for a lock safe and those who may lock it in grandma's cosmetic box that only you have the key and only you can open it. So that is what I'm looking at. In addition to that, at Washington Middle School and any other school that needs it, I'm looking for making sure that there are mental healthness rooms at those schools, particularly focusing on Washington Middle School, where those kids endured the trauma of seeing one of their schoolmates shot 6 times. So right now, the only school in the state of New Mexico that has a mental health wellness room is El Dorado. And the reason they have that school is because it had the highest rate of student suicide, and students needed a place in which they could have refuge and talk about what was bothering them. So I share those items with you, also making sure that students around the country, around the state rather, who want to go into the STEM field through the University of New Mexico, that there is funding available for them to make sure that that occurs. So with that, Madam, thank you very much, and I'll stop.
Thank you, Representative Herndon. Okay, now Senator Harold Pope.
Thank you, Marcella, and everyone. I'm Senator Harold Pope Jr., District 23, Northwest Albuquerque, Bernalillo County. Priorities for me this session, of course, we're kind of limited in what we can do. It's really budgetary issues unless it's on the call. But what I'm looking at is I have a few bills that are going to be helping out veterans, working with Representative Alcone on increasing property tax relief for disabled veterans. I'm also going to be a co-sponsor on the Green Amendment with Senator Cedillo Lopez. And I'm also going to be involved in some of the expansion of voting rights bills that were released by the governor and the Secretary of State. So those are really some priorities that I'm going to be working on in this session. I'm also looking at a bill that we're still working on right now. Unfortunately, it's not on the call yet. I haven't gotten any confirmation, but I want to look at possibly enhancing sentencing for hate crime here in our state. We've seen it across the nation. We've seen hate crimes here, even in our community, especially in our Asian American communities, our Jewish communities, and this would be a bill that would just enhance that. But we're not just trying to increase time for folks that do these crimes. We want to look at restorative justice. We want to make sure that we're changing the mindsets and that we're stopping this increase of hate that's been going around the country and unfortunately in our state. Thank you, Marcella.
Thank you, Senator Pope. And we have Senator Linda Lopez and we have Representative Christine Trujillo who are also on the call. So again, going across my screen, Senator Lopez.
Good morning, buenos dias. Thank you for the invitation to join everyone today. And it's good to see everyone and Happy New Year. There's always like this huge list that we all have of what we'd love to get done. But as Senator Pope did say, this is a financial session. So of course, looking at what we can do to increase support, right? Funding for many of our important, crucial programs in the state that the state does support. But some of my usual suspects of bills, I have put in a request to the governor's office for consideration to put on her call. My 11th try, and it's not mine, it's the team. Senator Pope, Senator Pinto, and others have joined in the Senate, Representative Caballero and others with the anti-institutionalized racism bill. So I've asked once again for that to be considered for the governor's call. The bill almost passed the House. It went through this past, well, it's already 2022, so the 2021 session, but it got stalled on the House floor at the end of the session last year due to some GOP maneuvering. I've also asked for the ethnic studies bill to be considered for the governor's call this session. Again, it made through both chambers in 2021, but died again because of GOP maneuvering on the House floor. So those are two which I think are crucial and necessary for many of the work that we do in our state, and as is committed when we talk about access, justice, and truly recognizing who we are here in the state of New Mexico, racial justice also. One of the other, I'm also honored to be a co-sponsor with Representative Herndon on her legislation. Also on the Green Amendment, I am a co-sponsor on that. I will be sponsoring, I'm honored to sit on the task force for the murdered, missing, and Indigenous women's and relatives. And I know a few of my members here are also on the task force. I will be sponsoring legislation that designates a specific day every year for the state of New Mexico where we concentrate and focus on information with regards to our missing persons in the state of New Mexico. So that's coming. Again, initiated by the task force itself, and working with Representative Chasey on a measure. She and I work with the Children's Commission for court improvement perspectives, issues, and we are again bringing forward a bill that passed again both chambers last year and died on the House floor again because of GOP maneuvering. And this is dealing with creating a guardian ad litem specific entity that deals for oversight for our children. And when we talk about, what representation our children and their families are receiving, this is an opportunity to move forward, strengthen, and really have some oversight to see exactly what our families and services are being given and what they're receiving, and also to look more into what we can do to strengthen especially for our children, their safety. Those are just a few of the items, but those are kind of the highlights at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. And we're going to go to Representative Christine Trujillo and then finally Representative Meredith Dixon. And again, thank you all for being here. Representative Trujillo, I'm loving your hair.
Oh, thank you. People think I dyed it blonde, but I actually tried to cover the gray. This is how it's happening. Anyway, good morning, everyone. It's good to be here. I struggled to get on. I finally did. All morning, I was able to get help from your person. So thank you for allowing me to be a part of this. I have, I serve on House Appropriations and Finance, and I serve on House Education during the session. But I served as the chairperson of the Legislative Health and Human Services Committee during the interim. And one of the things that we did was submit probably 30 pieces of legislative requests for approval from LFC. And it's my understanding that quite a few of those may actually get funded. The list is too long to go through in detail. But my own personal issues right now are obviously getting a good education funding bill. I believe that the governor's bill that Senator Stewart is carrying is an excellent bill in terms of raising teacher and other employee, not benefits, but wages. So that's really good. There are other education issues that I support as well. But my two personal ones right now are the human papillomavirus funding that I've been trying to get forward for probably 5 years. And then the other one is to eliminate the taxes on women's menstrual products. And I'm really trying hard. It's my understanding that we would only lose $1 million in terms of tax revenue. And to me, it's worth it with the fact that there are so many women that can't afford these products or struggle to afford these products because of the simple issue of taxing them. I think it's a personal issue that needs to be, and humane issue that needs to get resolved. I'm hoping it'll move forward this year. The other issues are obviously, I lost my train of thought. The point is, there are a lot of bills that I'm co-sponsoring with others in the House, and I'm looking forward to this session. For the first time in years, I was starting to lose faith, but I think that this year is going to be a good year. We have great legislative partners. I'm happy to see all of them on most of them on this Zoom. And I thank you, Maricela, for letting me be here as I struggle to get words through my mouth. I must not have had enough coffee. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. And I also see Senator Katie Duhigg. So we're going to go with Representative Dixon, and then we'll go to Senator Duhigg. So Representative Dixon, welcome.
Great. Good morning. Thank you, Marcella. So I am Representative Meredith Dixon, and I represent Southeast Albuquerque, the Four Hills area, Sandia Science and Tech Park, and moving up a little bit into the foothills and North Carnwell. My priority areas overall have been reducing crime, improving child well-being, and diversifying New Mexico's economy. But as others have mentioned, with the restriction on topics for the session for this coming January session. My areas of focus are primarily on the crime reduction legislation. I'll be carrying a couple pieces of legislation, including one on property crime, which is a combination of the chop shop and metal theft bills. We're going to combine those. Both of those have made it out of the House and to some extent the Senate, but have never actually made their way to the governor's desk before. So we're going to try those again. We're looking at some gun violence, stricter penalties for gun violence, and also some funds for retention bonuses for law enforcement officers. So I'm working with a great group of legislators, a number of whom are on today, and hopefully we can get that passed because I know it's a concern for many of the constituents in our districts. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative. And Senator Duhigg, we're just, if you want to introduce yourself and talk about your legislative priorities for the upcoming session, and thank you for being here.
Great. Thank you so much, and thank you all. And I apologize for jumping on late. I was also having some technical difficulties getting on that Ivan very kindly walked me through. But yeah, I'm Katie Duhigg. I represent Senate District 10, which is Albuquerque's West Side, North Valley, and a little bit of Rio Rancho. And I have I think 5 bills I'm going to be doing this session. Probably the top billing stuff is going to be voting rights, harm reductions. I'm sure we've all seen, there was a series in the Journal a couple weeks ago about the problems with fentanyl, and Senator Lopez might have already talked about this bill because I believe she's on it as well. But making sure that we can address what's happening with fentanyl in our community and the deaths that's causing. Also, the Wings Commission was formed last session, and they will have some legislation seeking to improve guardianships and conservatorships in New Mexico and make sure that folks are appropriately protected. And some stuff around wage rate setting to get rid of to do really a technical fix to get rid of a loophole that currently exists where essentially the appropriate wage rates can be held up going into effect for years and years and years. So, but I'm really excited to see what else everyone else is going to be working on and to work together to keep moving New Mexico forward. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Senator. And we have our first question from, and I see Laura Montoya's hand first. I'm going to go ahead and start with this question. And it was just texted to me from Facebook Live from Barbara Grothus. She says, New Mexico state prisons are now sending all prisoner mail to security in Florida, to Securus in Florida, to be scanned and sent electronically, not at private prisons. Why? Also, increased pretrial detention is on the call. People need a way to prepare a defense. I don't know who wants to take a stab at that question. Senator Lopez?
Thank you, Barbara, for your questions. With the issue on the pretrial, and I know I was just reading some information on a lot of some of those concerns that have been raised. I think there's some venues that we need to really look at, and I think really afford our persons who have been arrested and who are waiting for their court case to make sure that they have partially representation. I know that our public defender's office is overwhelmed to try and keep up, and many a times, I've had some constituents of my own too, who just barely meet their lawyer, like maybe even an hour before they're in front of the judge. So there's still a lot of things that we have to go through and look at. I happen to sit on the interim Courts Corrections and Justice Interim Committee. And, you know, that's still one of the concerns that we have looking at justice reform as to what we can do to make sure that those persons who are waiting trial do have an opportunity for, I call a true review and, you know, for defense when they are in front of the judge. So I don't have an answer at this point, but I do know it's still something that's on the list that we have to work with, and we must, just to make sure that there's adequate representation for that venue.
Thank you, Senator. Do any other legislators want to answer or have a comment, anything like that? If not, we can move on to Laura Montoya, who has her hand up.
Thank you, Marcella. Thank you, everyone, for the conversation and everything that you're doing, senators and reps. Financial literacy is something that is really important to me, and I know that we had a piece of legislation last year that didn't quite make it through. If the governor puts it on the call, what is your take on being able to make it a mandatory class somewhere between 9th and 12th grade, and putting it in economics instead of under math? Would you be able to be supportive of that? Yes.
May I
Senator.
add? Oh, go ahead.
I think you have the floor, Representative Trujillo.
Okay.
Chairwoman.
I think it's a great idea. I remember though that as a former teacher, you know, we used to have folks come up with really brilliant ideas for additional curriculum, but we never took anything off. And so one of the issues of concern for educators is I think most people understand that financial literacy is critical, but we have to understand what things do we need to take off to ensure that there's not an overload for expectations in curriculum. I don't recall the language in the bill, but if it had the language that integrates financial literacy in the math component in that at that grade level, I think it can be done. I support financial literacy, by the way. It's like business math. Remember in high school, we need to get our kids to understand that it isn't all about geometry and all the other mathematic components that they think they're not going to need. But this is basic business math that I think that they do need.
Thank you, Representative Trujillo. I see Senator Pope's hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, and
Senator.
I agree with a lot of what Representative Trujillo was saying. What I've seen from just being now Vice Chair on Senate Education is that, you know, we have some of the highest credit requirements for high school graduation in the country. And so when we add these, and this is something that is important and our students need it, but we have to find a way to include it and then not put too many requirements on our students and on our educators. So I definitely want to find a way to do this. Probably not a separate course, but being included in economics and math, wherever that needs to be, it needs to happen. But as I've learned from our Chairman Souls, we almost have a Jenga set up to where we keep just adding things and we're not taking anything out or modifying it. And we're just adding requirements. So we just need to find a way to do it and do it the right way.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Pope. Do any other, Senator Lopez?
I just wanted to mention, if I may too, and Representative Trujillo, you may remember, there was a meeting that PED, Public Education Department, had earlier this year, and some of us were part of it in the discussion, where they are actually looking at revamping the requirements for graduation. So it's part of the plan. I believe that for the next 60-day session, that we will have another perspective to look at as to this part of give and take, as both the Senator and Representative were mentioning. So I know it's in the works as to how we can balance it. And then of course, with the adoption of the books, you know, for social studies, I mean, there's this whole revamping that I firmly believe that we'll be able to accommodate some of these very important necessaries, but PED is also working on this too, just an FYI.
Thank you, Senator Lopez.
May I add something to that? You know, meeting with the PED the other day and talking to them individually and the work that we do with Legislative Education Study Committee, there are a lot of plates being juggled, in the air in terms of expectations, curriculum expectations. And, there are a lot of things in going through process, but they're not definitive yet. And so, the messages that go out to the public and what we're hearing as legislators sometimes get crossed. And so it's important to read what's going on with those press releases that the PED sends out, because it's critical. Not everything is in the places that we think that they are. So just a heads up for you when you receive different messages. Just be patient.
Thank you. And I'm glad that Representative Dixon mentioned the bill that was sponsored by her, Willie Madrid, Representative Momayes. That's actually the bill I was referring to, that they've been working on to try to change it from math to economics because of that whole Jenga process, and trying to work with the unions as well and teachers, so we're not putting more burden on our educators. But remember, New Mexico is ranked 47th in financial literacy. The federal government just passed some legislation that requires for financial literacy as well. And so it's just something that I think we all need to keep in the back of our minds, because it does help with all those other needs that you all have with building the gap between the rich and the poor, the haves and the have-nots, and setting people up for success. Thank you for the conversation. Thank you, Marcella.
Thank you, Laura. And I see Brian Egan's hand. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your last name.
You got it. Yes. My question is to Representative Day Hockman-Hill. Could you please tell us more about state capital outlay funding plans for the North Domingo Baca Aquatic Center? I live just north of the park, and I would love to go swimming in a pool. And the pool's been promised for more than a decade. The school district has contributed some money in the recent school bond. The city's providing the land. I hear the state would like to contribute some money. We have a massive surplus of billions of dollars. This is the year to finish the pool.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for your question. I'm sorry I wasn't able to make it to the meeting on this the other night. So it is the year, in fact, and the exciting thing that's happening with the North Domingo Baca Pool is, for the first time, and thanks to Councillor Brooke Basson's efforts, we see a coalition of public entities coming together to do what we need to do to get see the pool through. So for the first time, we have buy-in from APS. The city of Albuquerque has put the pool. I think it's number one or number two priority for capital outlay this year. And so everybody's coalescing around this idea of the North Domingo Baca Pool, and all of the representatives, Albuquerque area representatives from that area have come together. Representative Marion Matthews has taken this issue on head on, bless her heart. And she is working really, really hard with City of Albuquerque capital outlay advisors to put together a comprehensive and cohesive plan to lobby all of our lawmakers and legislators during the capital outlay period to get them to throw in some money. So that's the first aspect of what we're trying to do. I will be one of those people walking around twisting arms, getting people to put money in the pot and to convince them that it's one of the best projects that we can actually support right now, and we're ready to get it done. Another interesting development is the governor's office, I think, is very interested in the plan, and many people don't know this, but the way the capital outlay funding works is, if we have a year in which we have a revenue surplus, and we have money for individual capital outlay grants to individual legislators, each legislator gets a review of projects that have been requested from them in their area or otherwise, and then they can decide whether or not to fund those projects and to fund them and for how much. And so we get a certain amount of the pot, and then the governor gets a certain amount of the pot for her projects. And so very smart people who've learned how to lobby this issue have been asking the governor to also put money in from her capital outlay pot so that we can put together a big amount of money to push this through. I feel pretty confident that we're gonna get this done, or we're gonna at least take a huge bite out of it. And the coolest thing about it, though, that I want everybody to know is that for the first time we see, lawmakers, city councilors, mayors, APS administrators and school board officials coming together to like work on something that's going to be really, really cool for our community. And I'm really excited to be working on that as well. I'm good at twisting arms, so I'll be there on the floor. Get ready, Reps Herndon and Dixon. I'm coming for you.
Thank you.
She's
This is very
she
good
is a
news.
good arm twister.
Thanks, Rep Trujillo.
Oh,
I'm coming for you too.
do we have any other questions from the audience? Okay, wow, this is a quiet group. So then I'm gonna ask these members to each talk about something they're super excited for in the upcoming session.
I have a question if no one has a question. Predatory lending. I know that's something that has been coming up quite a bit. If any of you know if it is on the call, what your thoughts are on trying to decrease the percentage on those predatory loans.
I can speak on that. I've been involved in that.
Yay.
Thanks for the question, Laura. So predatory right now as it stands, a group of us have actually been meeting. I think it's me and Senator Duhigg who are a part of this group who've been meeting on it. And so what happened last year is there was a bill that started in the Senate, made it all the way through the Senate, made it to the House floor, and there were some amendments and changes made to the percentages, and it actually I think we passed it out of the House with those amendments and then went back to the Senate, and there was a failure of concurrence and then the bill died. So what has been happening over the interim is the same group of legislators, mostly women, I'm proud to talk to say, have been meeting to try and find a compromise and for the bill in a way that it can pass both chambers and get up to the governor. Lieutenant Governor Howie Morales actually took the issue on, and he started having meetings with us, and basically the governor said, because this what we'll be considering on the call is so restricted that, unless you guys come up with something, a compromise that you guys are all behind, I'm not putting it on the call. And right now, I mean, Senator Duhigg may have heard, more news on this, but from what I've heard, we have not reached a compromise yet. We're still all really interested in finding a compromise, and I'm sure we'll meet over it during the session. But right now, it's not looking like it's going to be considered on the call. But that doesn't mean that the issue is dead. We will be bringing something back eventually. It's an important issue, and we need to make sure that we, get it right. So that's kind of what I've heard on that.
Yeah, and I think Representative Huckman-Behill is absolutely right. It is not something that is being thrown overboard in general, but it looks like it's more likely that it's going to be addressed in the next 60-day session than the coming 30-day one. And frankly, this is an issue that we want to get done right. And so it is better to take a little bit more time, make sure it's done well, make sure that New Mexicans are appropriately served and protected, than to try to rush something through just for the sake of getting something through right now.
Thank you, Senator Duhigg. And Susan Kelly, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I have a totally different subject. So if someone wants to continue on this subject, they should go first. No? Okay. I wanted to just make a pitch to support water issues. There's a move to try to put money into what's called the Strategic Water Reserve, which is a fund that's administered by the Interstate Stream Commission that buys water rights to keep them in rivers so that for environmental purposes and also to make interstate compact deliveries. So I would urge that in budgetary considerations, our legislators support that. And also they are working on long-range planning for water. So that's my pitch, is use this opportunity to better support our future water supply. Thank you.
Susan, on that point, I pay attention to both the executive budgetary proposals and the LFC budgetary proposals for this year. We're going to be using a fair amount of our state surplus revenue and also the federal funds to address water planning in the state for the first time, really, actually. So I would direct you, and I'm happy to talk to you about that as well offline.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Representative Hockman Behill. We have a question in the chat from Angela Merkett. And what are your thoughts on what will be required not only in 2023, but beyond to implement the Empower and Collaborate economic development plan for the state? Is there long-range financial plan to support it? And I will start with any member who wants to go first. Senator Pope.
So I have to be honest, I'm not familiar with Empower and Collaborate. I don't know if you're just using those terms, or is that if that's an actual plan. But what I will say is, I think we started a little bit of that last session. And we just have to find ways to really diversify our economy. Whether you're concerned about the environmental impacts of us being solely relied a lot of our budget on oil and gas, it's just not a stable stream for our economy. It can be boom or bust, and we've already been harmed by that. So we really have to find ways to invest to diversify the economy. And I think this is the time now with these surpluses. This is when we make those types of investments to do that. So for me, I'm really supportive in that. I think there's going to be probably some legislation to do some more of that. We did that last session with some of the LEDA funding. And it's something that we just have to do. So once again, I don't know if this is a specific plan as far as Empower and Collaborate. I haven't heard of that myself. I will look into that, and I'll put my email in the chat. If you could send me more information on that, I would really want to learn more.
Thank you, Senator Pope. And actually, and Angela, we have another question, and it is, what is Empower and Collaborate economic development? And do I see you, Angela?
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Senator Pope, for your response. Empower and Collaborate is the 20-year economic development plan for the state that was funded through some recovery funds. And I believe it was released in October. So it came out when there was a lot of other work going on as well. But it looks like it's going to have it can have a major impact on truly diversifying our economy. It's also going to take some major funding to make it happen. And in looking at that, and I'm, to give the rest of the story, I'm the executive director of Alliance for Local Economic Prosperity that's promoting the startup of a state public bank. And the plan is going to require some major funding. And so I was raising that around, are we taking a look at what it's going to take to make that plan operational? Because we won't have the fire hose of funds coming in every year, the revenues that we do this year. And so for a longer range plan, that's what I wondered about, if there's been any discussion about a long range financial plan that will support that economic development strategic plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela.
Marcella, may I add a response for that?
Absolutely. Go ahead, Representative.
Sure. I think so. I was very excited about the rollout of the plan, the 20-year plan. And I think as a member of House Appropriations, we're going to have to see what the executive has put in their recommendations for the Economic Development Department what funding they would like this coming year to meet some of those targeted implementation and goals that they have for the diversification. I think that the legislature and the executive will have to work together to figure out which priorities are funded first. But I'm certainly looking forward to working with the Economic Development Department to make sure that we fund some of those opportunities.
Thank you, Representative Dixon. And I saw Brian's hand up for a while now. Is this okay?
Quick question,
Brian.
just
And then-
on the issue of affordable housing and homelessness. Has anyone looked at the idea of copying what other states are doing to make it easier for people that are experiencing homelessness to get a replacement ID by waiving the fee at Motor Vehicle Division and waiving the fee for the birth certificate at Vital Records? Because that's often a barrier to getting housed, being able to get an apartment, get into shelter, get into programs, is your ID's been lost or stolen and you don't have the money to pay the replacement. So that would be an idea if someone wants to see about putting in a fee waiver for homelessness. California's been doing it for a long time, for example, waiving the fee for getting your replacement birth certificate from the state of New Mexico, because that's often the barrier. You have to have your birth certificate to get your ID to apply for an affordable apartment. Do folks support that idea?
So I think we're getting head nods, yes. Does anyone want to elaborate? If not, we can go on to our chair, Flora Lucero, and then Representative Herndon has her hand up. And Esther Griego has been trying to ask a question too, but we're gonna let Esther and Justin speak in about 3 minutes on the Healthcare Act. So Madam Chair Flora.
Thank you, Madam Chair Duarte. So I'd really like to hear from Representative Trujillo, Representative Thompson, and Senator Lopez, some of our senior members, about the dissolving of the committee, the Land Grant Committee. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. I'm concerned about it, but you all have, I'm sure, have your opinions about it, since you know the ins and outs of our legislature. So,
Do you want me to start?
yes.
Okay. I think everybody in the House, when they heard that it had been dissolved, were stunned. Apparently, the Speaker and Chairman Garcia had some conversations way in early October about their disagreement about how the committee should be run. It's my understanding that they had a very strong discussion at the end of the special session, and the Speaker decided to dissolve it. I've had lots of land grant committee people calling me, and as my colleagues probably have, asking me what's going on. I spoke to the Speaker, and he says that we are having a meeting, I think the 12th, if I'm not mistaken, both acequias and land grant people and several of us seniors from the interim committee and the regular land grant committee to discuss how to move this, to reinstitute the committee and how to move the direction of the land grant goals forward. The Speaker did state to me that he was very concerned that he felt that he had overreacted, and so he was very repentant in his conversation with me. But it stirred the pot enough to raise folks who sit on the outskirts, watching, to become involved. And I thought that was a huge, positive, unexpected accident. I think, Flora, like you and a lot of us who are connected in some capacity to land grants, that it's a critical committee that needs to exist. And I think that because it's a low-key committee, people don't understand the huge impact that committee has on many of our members of the state. But that's the latest, and that was from the speaker himself.
Thank you.
And I will just jump in to say that I have nothing more to add. Representative Trujillo knows a whole lot more about it, having served on the committee. So I have nothing to add.
Thank you, Representative Thompson. Senator Lopez.
Thank you, and Madam Chair, for your question, and for Representative Trujillo for your information also. Of course, the Senate doesn't have purview over what happens in the House. It's the Speaker who directs and takes care of what takes place there. However, there were concerns that I, and I know several of my colleagues also had, that I also received many a phone call and email. I happen to serve on the interim land grant committee, as does Representative Trujillo and others. Land grants are important for our community, and not just here in Albuquerque. We got 3-school land grants and such, but many of us are heirs also in other capacities, which I am also. And I think it's, I'm grateful for the information that Representative Trujillo has shared. But I also believe that this is something that we, as a group of Democrats, need to focus on and pay attention to, because Hispanics, Native Americans, and others are very much our base, and who we work with, quote unquote, depend on for elections. And it's just a focus that we need to continuously work on and look at, because if we don't, cuídate.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Lopez. Representative Herndon, I see your hand up.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to make 3 quick comments, and unfortunately I couldn't be recognized in the order in which they would have come, but I want to make these. One, with respect to economic development within our state and growing it. It's important that we revitalize and find a way to grow again small businesses, particularly within each one of our neighborhoods. Because when we grow small businesses in our neighborhoods, it helps create walkable neighborhoods, which also cuts down on that footprint that we would be making that would affect our atmosphere. With respect to financial literacy, I just want to point out to the group, we're having a hard time getting that cap on an interest rate passed. Maybe what we need to do is pivot and look at how do we raise the visibility of federal credit unions. The highest interest rate they can charge is 18%. And I just want to let you know that also they have the goal of people helping people. So they look at helping low-income people. So if we can't get this through the legislature, maybe we need to pivot and find another way to grow federal credit unions within our state to accomplish what we can't do through the legislation. And the last thing, and Brian, I just want to, compliment you on thinking about low-income individuals. One of the things that's happened in our city is on the west side, there is a low-income housing project that has been built near Unser and Central. And not only at that intersection, they're making people feel warm and welcome. Just because it's a low-income housing project, you don't have to feel substandard. They're putting a coffee shop, a bookstore, all those things out there to make people feel good and to lift the well-being of each and every person, regardless of your income status. So I just wanted to bring those out. Thank you very much for recognizing me. Sorry, I wasn't in the order in which it came up, but I wanted to make sure you could hear it.
Thank you so much, Representative Herndon. I see Justin with America Votes. I see your hand. Go ahead.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm here advocating for voting rights restoration for formerly incarcerated people. I've been working on this legislation with Representative Gail Chasey since 2019. Voting rights restoration is important to me because civic engagement is how I've broken the cycle of recidivism for myself. Voting rights means that my voice matters and that I belong in this community. I know that when we are provided with the opportunity to participate in the functions of society and understand democracy, we're less likely to inflict harm on ourselves and others. I'm asking the representatives on this call to please support voting rights restoration for our returning citizens. Thank you.
And and Justin, thank you, Senator Duhigg. Thank you for all of the work that you've done in this area. I know that you have been an incredibly strong voice and an excellent example of why reforms like felon voter restoration is so important. So thank you for all the work you've done on that. And that is definitely going an element of the election legislation that we'll be seeing this session.
Yes, thank you. Okay, now let's go to Esther Griego. Go ahead, ma'am. The floor is yours.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. As some of you know me, I am on the board of the Health Security Campaign, and we're very excited with what's going on with the campaign now. As some of you may also know, in 2021, the legislature funded the Office of the Superintendent of Insurance to begin the design process of the health security plan. At that time, we decided that the two most important topics would be provider payment, which is the methodology, not the amount providers would get paid, and the global budgets for hospitals. Pennsylvania and Maryland already have global budgets. Pennsylvania in particular does a very good job with global budgeting for the rural hospitals, which is something that New Mexico is in great need of. The design decisions to be made are not easy ones. And this upcoming session provides an opportunity to go big. We are requesting $1.5 million to engage in more research, hire more consultants, and provide the superintendent's office with staff to manage this transparent design process. And our website, if you want to learn more about global budgets, you can either go into our website or Maryland's and Pennsylvania's websites. Ours is nmhealthsecurity.org. We need your active support to ensure that funding to continue this important process is included in House Bill 2, the budget bill. We are the first state to actually roll up our sleeves to do this. We need your help to succeed.
Thank you, Esther.
And I'll be happy to answer any questions if somebody has a question.
Are there any questions? Does anyone want to make any final comments, plugs for anything?
I do. It's been a crazy 2 years with all our legislative efforts, interim committees, etc. Being able to interact with the public has been difficult in person, and it's my understanding we're opening up the legislature this year so that the public can interact. I would advise you all to continue to wear your masks, make sure that you stay healthy. And if you don't have to be there and want to do the Zoom thing or webcast, that's critical, because no matter how much we try to be healthy and safe, everyone's getting sick. And this is not an issue that we can debate. Unfortunately, folks from the other side of the aisle tend to think that it's no big deal, and they don't always wear masks. And it's unfortunate, but I believe, and I'm sure my colleagues do, that in order to stay healthy we still need to practice good safety procedures. But I want to thank you for inviting us to this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Representative Trujillo. Representative Thompson, I see your hand.
Thank you, Marcella. I want to thank you all for being involved and for taking time out of your day to learn about what's going on in New Mexico. And I want to really echo what Representative Trujillo said. I think the House did a really good job last session with our Zoom. We made it easy for people. We got more comments than we've ever gotten, and the Republicans keep saying you're keeping people out. What really, the people who are kept out are the people who are paid to be there, the lobbyists, etc., and the people who have the means to get there. So by having a Zoom option, we can have the mom of a toddler in Silver City weigh in on something. So my request to you is every time the Republicans push out that we're keeping people out, et cetera, the answer is no, we're not. We are actually much more accessible to people who aren't the normal wall hangers, people who don't have money to come to Santa Fe, people who don't have reliable transportation or childcare or can't get off work. So the Democrats in the legislature are making our process more available to the everyday New Mexican as opposed to the wealthy and well-connected. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Thompson, and agreed. Okay, anyone else want to add?
I want to say just a couple of things. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to our legislators for taking time out of your lives to let us know about what you'll be doing on our behalf in the upcoming session. And thank you for soldiering on through this new technology. I know it was a little bit difficult for a lot of people. So those of you, I apologize if you got some headaches from it. And for those of you watching Facebook Live, I'm sorry if there was trouble for you getting into this technology. It was something ambitious and new. And, you know, we wanted to try to convert something in person to something online. And, you know, soon we'll be back to it face to face. But as Representative Trujillo said, we have to be careful and we have to watch out for one another and make sure that we stay as healthy as possible. So thank you each and every one for participating. Special thanks, like I said, to our legislators. We sure appreciate you. You do such magnificent work on our behalf. We are so very lucky to live in a state where we have wonderful Democratic representatives and senators who care about us and show it in meaningful ways that impact the lives of every New Mexican. So thank you so much for what you do. We are there for you as well. And we look forward to getting you reelected this year, our representatives. We're gonna just keep on keeping New Mexico blue. So thank you all. Thank you, Marcella, for facilitating this event.
Of course, thank you all. It was nice seeing everybody.